royals never allow any marriage out of a royal family. It didn't matter if a princess was ugly or stupid.
From having deformed limbs to the infamous Habsburg jaw that stood out like a sore thumb, many families over the years intermarried either to keep their royal legacy pure or simply because they had no other options. Whatever the case might have been, some of them led to severe complications that lasted for generations and can even be seen today. With that said, let's dive into history's most inbred women and the impact they left on their future generations. Lorraine Whitaker. With deformed limbs and an uneven face, Lorraine approaches each day with fierce determination. Part of the infamous inbred Whitaker family, Lorraine's life is filled with challenges shaped by years of living in isolation. Deep in the rugged hills of West Virginia, the Whitakers have been cut off from the outside world, and the effects of this seclusion are striking. Her arms and legs are shorter and misshapen, making even simple tasks, like walking across a room or climbing stairs, huge challenges. But her struggles don't stop there. Lorraine also deals with challenges in learning and thinking. Remembering things and making decisions can feel like climbing a steep mountain. In a family with little education, these hurdles make life even tougher. The harsh effects of inbreeding have led to many genetic problems in Lorraine's family. These issues affect their bodies and minds. Lorraine faces mental delays that make it hard for her to interact with the world. Everyday activities like following instructions or solving simple problems can leave her feeling lost and frustrated. One of Lorraine's biggest challenges is communication. In a family where some members can't speak at all, she fights to express herself. Instead of using words, they often communicate with barking, grunting, and simple sounds. This makes it incredibly tough for Lorraine to find the right words, leaving her feeling lonely and disconnected. Just think about how hard it is to connect with others when you can't find your voice. After the release of the documentary Inbred Family: The Whitakers, the family's story has sparked a lot of discussions about ethics. Many viewers feel deep sympathy for Lorraine and her family, connecting with their struggles and worrying about their well-being, but not everyone agrees. Critics ask if the family truly understands what it means to be in the spotlight. Did they really give informed consent? On the other hand, supporters believe the documentary highlights the harsh realities that isolated poor families face in rural America. They argue that Lorraine's story and those of her family are important for raising awareness and encouraging compassion for people in similar situations. The story of the Whitakers opens up discussions about poverty, education, and healthcare access in remote communities. Sadly, Lorraine's story isn't an isolated case. In 2023, the shocking discovery of the Cult family in New Zealand stunned the world, unraveling yet another dark chapter of inbreeding within a family. Kimberly Cult. With a face marked by asymmetry that drew both curious glances and hurtful whispers, she navigated a world that often judged her by her appearance rather than her spirit. Growing up in Australia, Kimberly's life was anything but typical. Her family had a long history of marrying within their own, which had shaped her life in ways most people couldn't even think of. From a young age, Kimberly stood out, not just because of her unique looks, but because of the challenges that came with them. Making friends was tough, kids can be unkind, and Kimberly felt the weight of those judgments every day. The world can be a harsh place for anyone who doesn't fit in, and Kimberly felt that sting deeply, but her struggles didn't end with her face. Kimberly also had limb deformities, which meant her arms and legs were shorter and shaped differently. Simple things, like running down a hill or climbing stairs, became huge challenges for her. Each day felt like an obstacle course, where even the smallest tasks required a lot of effort. On top of that, she also had hearing and sight problems. As if that wasn't bad enough, Kimberly struggles with cognitive hurdles too. Many people from inbred backgrounds deal with learning difficulties, and Kimberly was no exception. She had a hard time with things like remembering instructions or making decisions. What seemed easy for others felt like walking through quicksand for her. This struggle often left her feeling frustrated and helpless, making everyday life even more complicated. Louise of Austria. Born into the Habsburg family infamously known for their deformed jaws, Marie became an important figure in history, mainly because of her marriage to French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. She was the daughter of Holy Roman Emperor Francis II and the famous Maria Theresa of Austria. They considered intermarriages an essential practice for keeping power and forming strong alliances. Now, while her parents might not have been seen as close relatives by today's standards, the Habsburgs had a knack for marrying within a small circle of European nobility. Unfortunately, this included cousins and other relatives. This close-knit approach to marriage came with serious consequences. Inbreeding, especially among royals, increased the risk of genetic problems and health issues, and the Habsburgs were not immune to these challenges. One of the most striking legacies stemming from the marital choices of the Habsburg dynasty is undoubtedly the infamous Habsburg jaw. This unique physical trait, characterized by a pronounced chin and a protruding jawline, was not merely a quirky family feature. It was a direct result of generations of inbreeding. This situation clearly shows how these marriage choices affected the health and looks of family members. It reminds us of the possible problems that can come from prioritizing political alliances over genetic diversity. Maria I of Portugal. Maria, also known as the Infanta of Spain, was a fascinating figure in history. She was Queen of Portugal from 1777 until her death, making her the first woman to be Queen Regent in the country. Her life was filled with royal drama and the heavy shadows of family history, especially concerning inbreeding. Born into a world of crowns and power, Maria was the daughter of King Joseph I of Portugal and Queen Maria Anna of Austria. This royal background connected her to two important royal families, the Habsburgs and the Portuguese monarchy. As we know, the Habsburgs were famous for their practice of marrying close relatives to keep their royal bloodline strong and build political alliances. However, this strategy had its downsides. When Maria took the throne, the shadows of her family history hung heavily over her reign. The Habsburgs, her royal family, were known for a long history of serious health problems, including physical deformities and mental health struggles. As time passed, Maria began to show signs of mental health issues herself. This led historians and doctors to wonder if her challenges were linked to the very ancestry that shaped her royal identity. It also raised important questions about the pressures of being part of such a family. Maria's life was a mix of triumph and turmoil, especially during the early 1800s when her kingdom was in chaos. As political unrest swept through Portugal, the threat of Napoleon's army invading added tremendous stress to her reign. She had to deal with not only the responsibilities of being a queen, but also her own mental health struggles. This was no ordinary time. It was filled with confusion and uncertainty. The pressure of her role often made her mental health issues worse. This in turn created a storm of emotions that mirrored the chaos around her. Amid invasions and political challenges, Maria's struggles highlighted the immense strain of being a monarch during difficult times. In a bold effort to strengthen royal ties, Maria married her first cousin, Prince Pedro of Brazil. This union was more than just a family connection. It was a smart move aimed at bringing Portugal and Brazil closer together. While this marriage sought to unite two powerful families, it also raised questions about the possible problems that could arise, much like the Habsburgs, who were known for their complicated and sometimes troubled marriages. As Maria's reign progressed, the world around her changed quickly. The Enlightenment was challenging old beliefs, colonial powers were beginning to weaken, and the Napoleonic Wars were casting a long shadow over Europe. In the midst of these major changes, Portugal found itself at a crucial turning point. It faced significant political and social shifts that would shape its future. As Maria's mental health declined, her ability to govern suffered. By 1799, her son, Prince John, stepped in to take on the role of regent, effectively ruling in her place. Maria passed away in 1816, leaving behind a complex legacy that connected the histories of Portugal and Brazil. While Maria's reign as Queen of Portugal was marked by the heavy shadows of her Habsburg ancestry and the political turmoil of her time, another noblewoman was navigating the intricate web of European aristocracy. Like Maria, she was part of a royal family that embraced the traditions of intermarriage, binding powerful dynasties together. Marie-Louise Elisabeth d'Orléans. Marie-Louise was no ordinary noblewoman. She was a lively and important figure in French history. She weaved her story through the complex world of royal alliances and aristocratic traditions. Born into the famous House of Orléans, a branch of the French royal family, Marie-Louise grew up in a family known for marrying within the European elite. While these marriages often strengthened political connections, they also brought the risk of inbreeding. Marie-Louise was the daughter of Philippe II, Duke of Orléans, who was a powerful regent of France for King Louis XV. Her mother, Françoise Marie de Bourbon, had a fascinating background too. She was the legitimate daughter of King Louis XVI and his well-known mistress, Madame de Montespan. With such an extraordinary family history, it's no wonder that Marie-Louise was meant for a life filled with excitement and intrigue. In 1734, Marie-Louise made a bold leap into the world of power and politics when she married Louis de Bourbon, Duke of Bourbon. This marriage was more than just a personal connection. It tied her to the House of Bourbon, a dynasty famous for its long history of intermarriage. By marrying into this influential family, she linked her fate to the larger story of European royal families. The Bourbon dynasty often used cousin marriages and intermarriage to boost their power, strengthen alliances, and maintain pure bloodlines. While there's no solid proof that Marie-Louise faced the effects of inbreeding, her family history suggests the health challenges many in the European aristocracy encountered. While their marriage was a clever strategic alliance, it also continued the very practices that could lead to genetic problems. Now, Marie-Louise isn't as well known as some of her more famous relatives, like her renowned grandfather, King Louis XVI. However, her impact on the complex world of European nobility was significant. Her marriage to Louis created connections that echoed throughout the aristocratic realm, shaping a complex web of alliances and relationships among royal families. While Marie-Louise navigated the intricate world of French royalty, this next Greek royal brings her own story of royal connections and challenges. Cleopatra. The famous Queen of Egypt was much more than the seductive figure we often see in movies. Her real life was full of political strategy, family drama, and determination. The popular stories, like how she rolled out of a rug to surprise Julius Caesar, missed the point of who she truly was. Cleopatra was a smart and powerful leader who knew how to handle the complicated world of politics. Born into the Ptolemaic dynasty, Cleopatra grew up in a family where marrying relatives was common to keep the royal bloodline pure and maintain power. Her family's focus on keeping their bloodline pure came with serious consequences. The Ptolemaic dynasty, known for marrying relatives, often faced health problems because of it. Cleopatra herself might have struggled with these issues, and some believe this could have led to her being overweight. Despite any health problems, she became one of the most famous and powerful women in history. Cleopatra's life was filled with drama, political battles, and fascinating history. Her family's history began with Ptolemy I Soter, a general who served under Alexander the Great. When Alexander died in 323 BC, Ptolemy took control of Egypt and started a dynasty that lasted for 300 years. Cleopatra might have been born in the sun-soaked sands of Egypt, but she wasn't Egyptian by ancestry. Instead, she came from a long line of Greek-speaking rulers who shaped the Ptolemaic dynasty. However, Cleopatra was not the kind of person to just sit back and let her background define her. In a bold and daring move, she embraced the traditions of her adopted country. In her grand palace, she was always surrounded by scrolls, learning to speak the Egyptian language. It was a powerful gesture that showed her desire to connect with her people and understand their culture on a deeper level. However, being part of the Ptolemaic dynasty came with its own set of unusual customs. Like many other royal families at that time, the Ptolemies often married within their own bloodlines. Marital decisions were made not just for love, but for power, alliances, and the future of their dynasty. Cleopatra was no exception. Her family tree was a tangled web of cousin and sibling marriages. More than a dozen of her ancestors walked this path, often marrying cousins or even siblings. In fact, her own parents were likely brother and sister, which adds a dramatic twist to this royal tale. In the heart of ancient Egypt, where power and politics twisted together like vines in a thick jungle, Cleopatra was not just a figurehead. She was a master navigator of a tangled web of family ties and royal duties. Staying true to the Ptolemaic tradition, she married both of her young brothers, turning them into her ceremonial husbands and co-rulers. However, don't be fooled by those royal titles. The reality was far from a fairy tale. Power struggles in the Ptolemaic dynasty were as common as the lavish banquets filled with delicious food and shiny jewelry. Her first brother-husband, Ptolemy XIII, was a particularly ambitious young man who wanted to take control. When Cleopatra decided she was ready to lead on her own, Ptolemy was not about to let that happen. In a dramatic twist worthy of the grandest theatre, he forced her out of Egypt, sparking a fierce sibling rivalry that set the stage for an epic showdown. Cleopatra, determined and clever, was ready to make her comeback. She knew she needed a powerful ally, and who better than Julius Caesar, the famous Roman general whose influence could change everything. With Caesar by her side, Cleopatra fought hard to reclaim her throne. The stakes were high, though. Her brother Ptolemy met his end in the murky waters of the Nile after a fierce defeat in battle. As Cleopatra watched the tragedy unfold, she felt the weight of her ambition. Her quest for power had come at a heartbreaking cost. However, the drama didn't stop there. Cleopatra's ambition pushed her to marry her younger brother, Ptolemy XVI, a move that seemed smart on the surface but carried its own dangers. The palace buzzed with rumors, whispers of suspicion and intrigue, swirling like smoke in the air. Some believed that Cleopatra, always the clever strategist, might have had a hand in Ptolemy XVI's mysterious death, all to clear the path for her son to step up as co-ruler beside her. In the dramatic story of Cleopatra's reign, the year 41 BC marked a chilling turn in her life. In a ruthless grab for power, she made the heartbreaking choice to have her sister, Arsinoe, assassinated. Cleopatra saw her as a dangerous rival for the throne. In the deadly game of politics within the Ptolemaic dynasty, family ties meant little. Survival was everything. Meanwhile, archaeologists digging through the remains of Egyptian royalty have found evidence that many royal figures struggled with weight issues. This problem likely came from their lavish lifestyles, filled with rich foods, bread, and lots of alcohol. This excessive indulgence, mixed with the genetic effects of their frequent intermarriages, led to various health problems among the royal bloodlines. Cleopatra herself had a unique appearance, marked by a hooked nose and a round face, with soft flesh under her chin. This was a far cry from the glamorous beauty often shown in movies. While Roman propaganda painted Cleopatra as a captivating seductress, the truth was much more complicated. She wasn't the glamorous figure made famous by Elizabeth Taylor. Cleopatra was a clever and politically smart queen, navigating a world filled with danger and betrayal. Isabella II of Spain. Isabella II entered a royal world where keeping it all in the family was more than just a saying. It was a clever strategy. In the 19th century, European royals, especially the House of Bourbon, saw cousin marriages as a way to maintain power and strengthen their bloodlines. While it might have sounded like a good plan then, it definitely wasn't. You see, the Bourbons were a powerful family, ruling both Spain and France. Now, even though this helped them keep their thrones safe, it also came with a big problem: inbreeding, which didn't just have moral problems, it also threatened the health of the entire family. Going back a few decades, Isabella's father, King Ferdinand VII of Spain, didn't have the best luck in love. He was married 4 times. In 1802, he married his first cousin, Princess Maria Antonietta of the Two Sicilies. Then, in 1816, he wed his niece, Maria Isabel de Bragança, who was the Princess of Portugal, but he wasn't done yet. In 1819, he married Princess Maria Josefa of Saxony, and in 1829, he married his niece, Maria Cristina of Bourbon Two Sicilies. With a family tree like that, it's no surprise that cousin-on-cousin marriages were common. However, what they didn't realize was the serious risk of inbreeding. The deal is that when close relatives marry, they're more likely to pass down the same genes, including the bad ones. So the more inbreeding there is, the higher the chance that harmful genetic traits can appear. This happens because inbreeding increases the chances of bad genes doubling up, which can lead to genetic disorders. When those disorders show up, they can cause big problems for future generations. Isabella's story isn't just about crowns and castles. It dives deep into the tangled web of royal family dynamics, where marrying close relatives was the norm. Now, we don't have many details about Isabella's health or how inbreeding impacted her life. However, from what historians have been able to gather, she suffered from stunted physical development. Sadly, these problems weren't just physical, but mental as well. You see, she was known to display erratic behavior and often went through long periods of depression as well. In the years that followed, the dangers of marrying within the family began to raise serious concerns. The growing realization that such unions could lead to genetic disorders slowly made its way into royal circles. As knowledge about genetics expanded, royal families started to think twice before marrying their relatives. Similarly, another royal emerged from the influential Habsburg family, where intermarriage was commonplace. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.